Today, I'm about to tell you a secret that defeated death itself. My name is Daniel Harper. I'm from the United States. I'm 72 years old. People call me successful. I own a thriving business. I live in a large house in one of the better parts of the city. There's money in the bank, cars in the garage, investments, assets. On paper, I have everything except peace. My children moved overseas years ago. They're settled now, busy, living their own lives, the kind doctors wear when the news isn't good. Mr. Harper, I'm sorry. The condition is progressing faster than expected. You may have weeks. Weeks. That word doesn't just enter your ears, it drops into your chest. I nodded, pretended to be strong. But inside, something collapsed. On the drive home, it was raining. I wasn't in a hurry anymore. What was the rush? That's when I saw him. A small boy, maybe 8, 9, sitting by the side of the road. Wet shoes, thin jacket, eyes that looked older than his age. He wasn't begging. He wasn't chasing cars. He was just sitting there, still. I drove past him. Then, I don't know why, I slowed down. Something in his eyes stayed with me. I made a U-turn, rolled down the window. "Hey, what are you doing out here?" He looked at me cautiously. "I don't have anyone," he said softly. I stepped out of the car. The rain was getting heavier. "What do you need?" I asked. He hesitated, and then he said something I wasn't prepared for. "I want to go to school." I froze. I thought he would ask for money, food, something small. But he asked for a future. "Just school?" I asked. He gave the smallest smile. "And maybe warm food sometimes." I don't know what shifted inside me at that moment. Maybe I saw my own loneliness reflected in his eyes. Maybe God was giving me one last lesson. I opened the passenger door. "Get in." He hesitated. "It's okay," I said. "You're safe." I brought him home. My large, empty house, for the first time in years, felt alive. I gave him dry clothes, made him dinner. He looked around like he couldn't believe it was real. The next morning, I took him to a nearby school. I spoke to the principal, paid the tuition, handled the paperwork myself. She seemed surprised that I came personally, but I needed to. On the drive back, he sat in the back seat, talking nonstop about school, about books, about learning, about wanting to be someone. I just listened. That evening, we ate dinner together. There was laughter in my house. Laughter. And something strange happened. For the first time in years, I felt peace. Real peace. The diagnosis was still there. The doctor's words still echoed. But the fear felt smaller. That night before sleeping, I realized something. Even if I had weeks left, at least I was alive in them. Truly alive. What I didn't know was that in just a few days, everything would change again. In a way even my doctors couldn't explain. The next few days felt different. I would wake up each morning and for a brief moment, I would forget what the doctor had said. Then it would come back. Weeks. But something had changed in the house. The boy, I had started calling him Adam, woke up early every morning. He would get dressed carefully, fix his hair in the mirror, pack his school bag with excitement. And then he would call out, "Sir, I'm ready." Sir. It had been years since someone looked at me with that kind of respect. I drove him to school every day. On the way, he asked endless questions. "What was your childhood like? How did you build your business? Do you think I can be successful one day?" I answered him. But somewhere deep inside, I was asking myself something else. Was I ever truly successful? In the evenings when he returned, the house felt alive. He would sit at the dining table doing his homework in front of me, sometimes asking for help. And whenever he smiled, it felt like something inside me was quietly healing. The illness was still there, silent, growing. A few days later, I had a follow-up appointment. This time, strangely, I wasn't as afraid. I sat in the waiting room, but for the first time, I wasn't thinking about death. I was thinking about Adam, his next test, his dreams, his future. The doctor called me in. He was reviewing my file. At first, his expression was neutral. Then he looked closer. He flipped through the reports again and again. He leaned forward slightly. "Mr. Harper," his voice changed. "This is unexpected." My heart tightened. "What do you mean?" He took a slow breath. "The progression has slowed down significantly. Some of the inflammation markers have dropped. The condition is about 50% more controlled than we anticipated." I just stared at him. He shook his head slightly. "We're not calling it a miracle," he said carefully, "but this is a very positive development. Weeks ago, I had been given a deadline. Now, time had stretched, just a little. When I stepped outside the hospital, the sky was clear. I stood there for a moment, breathing. It felt lighter. When I got home, Adam ran to the door. "Sir, I got an A today." He was holding his paper in the air, beaming with pride. I knelt down in front of him. "I'm proud of you," I said softly. He smiled, and in that moment I realized something powerful. I wasn't alone anymore. A few days later, my old friend Michael came to visit. We had built businesses together years ago. He studied my face carefully. "Daniel, you look different," he said. "There's something calmer about you. What's going on?" So I told him everything: the diagnosis, the rain, the boy by the roadside, the school enrollment, the new reports. He listened without interrupting. Then he leaned back and said quietly, "Sometimes healing doesn't start in the body, it starts in the heart." That sentence stayed with me. That night I couldn't sleep, not because of fear, but because something inside me was awakening. I picked up the phone and called my manager. "I need you to do something," I said. "Find children in this city who have no support, no families, no opportunities." There was silence on the other end. "How many are we talking about, sir?" I looked out the window. Adam was in the backyard, staring up at the sky. I answered slowly, "As many as we can responsibly support. I'm ready to take responsibility." After I hung up, there was a deep sense of peace inside me. The illness hadn't disappeared. The doctors hadn't declared me cured, but something had shifted. I wasn't fighting life anymore. I was sharing it. And maybe, just maybe, that was the beginning of my real recovery. Time passed, weeks, then months. The doctors remained cautious. Every visit they would say, "We're not declaring full recovery yet." But each report was better than the last. The illness hadn't disappeared, but it was stabilizing, gradually. And every time I walked out of that hospital, one question echoed in my mind: how? The medication hadn't changed. The treatment was the same. So what shifted? One afternoon, my doctor looked at me carefully and said, "Mr. Harper, we speak in terms of science, but sometimes a patient's will to live, their emotional state, their sense of purpose, can influence outcomes more than we understand." A reason to live. That sentence stayed with me. Before all this, I had everything, but no reason. Now I had one. Adam had changed too. There was confidence in his voice now, hope in his eyes. One evening he said, "Sir, one day I want to be like you." I smiled, but deep down I knew he wouldn't be like me. He would be better than me. Within months, we took responsibility for 3 more children, then 5, then 10. A section of my house turned into a small study space. Every evening, books would open, questions would fly across the room, laughter would echo through the halls, and I would sit there quietly, watching. This was the peace money had never been able to buy. One night I sat alone in the backyard. The sky was clear. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid of death. I whispered to myself, if my time comes now, I won't leave empty. Because I hadn't just existed, I had given. A few days later, my doctor called me in for what he described as a significant update. He was smiling. "We're calling this remarkable improvement," he said. "Your condition is stable. The immediate risk has reduced significantly." I lowered my head. There were tears in my eyes. I knew this wasn't just about medical charts. It was about transformation. Today, as I speak to you, I'm not claiming a magical cure. I'm not saying that every act of kindness guarantees healing. But I will say this. When you live only for yourself, life becomes heavy. When you begin living for someone else, life becomes a gift. I was given a warning about death, but the truth is, I had already been dying inside. That rainy day, that child by the roadside, that single decision, they didn't just change my weeks, they changed me. It wasn't the illness that defined my story. It was the act of giving. And if you're listening right now, if you feel like time is running out, like hope is fading, like you have no reason left, maybe you don't need more time. Maybe you need purpose. Because sometimes the way to get your life back is not by holding on to it tighter, but by giving it away. And that might be the moment you truly begin to live again.